And to discuss more, we are now being joined by Dr. Glenn Diesen from Oslo. He is a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway and an editor at the Russia in Global Affairs Journal. Thank you so much, Dr. Diesen, for joining us on the broadcast.
Oh, my pleasure.
Dr. Diesen, the Nobel Committee has announced Maria Corina Machado as this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner. And now she has received this for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela. Now, the committee has also stated this in their announcement. Now, how do you interpret the message that the Nobel Committee is trying to send with this year's choice?
Well, it tends to be very political, the Peace Prize. As we're just told, it's a hope that it will support their cause. And again, I think anyone pursuing democracy can make a strong cause for this, that they're deserving of a peace prize. However, that means linking democracy directly to peace. The problem, though, is that within NATO, there's a tendency now to pursue a very militaristic approach to democracy. It tends to justify a lot of wars. So I think there's also some reason for concern, given that the US Navy is now parked outside the coast of Venezuela, attacking civilian vessels. And again, you could see a war coming. So, and I would then be concerned that she hasn't really opposed indeed she has supported all the pressure of the United States on Venezuela, the sanctions which have killed tens of thousands and caused mass amount of people fleeing. She hasn't really pushed back against the US threats of war against her own country. So by just coloring, by saying, oh, she's against the government, which NATO doesn't care for, and the US wants to topple, that means she's a champion of democracy. And my fear is that it could legitimize war as well, given that the US building a case for invasion of Venezuela. So I'm a bit critical. It doesn't mean that I don't recognize that the cause of her supporters, that it might be legitimate, that they want greater democratic representation. But again, I tend to be a bit skeptical. Again, in the past, we've given the Peace Prize to the EU, to Obama. It's often very, very political.
Of course, Dr. Diesen, but having said that, the European Union awarded its top human rights prize to Maria Corina Machado, along with other Venezuelan opposition politician Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia. Now, having said that, there has been a fair bit of debate around this year's prize, particularly with President Trump claiming credit for resolving 7 wars in total and repeatedly insisting that he deserves to win this prize for his diplomatic efforts. Now, how do you see Machado's win against the backdrop of Trump's persistent claims, and how do you think Trump is going to react to this announcement?
Well, it's hard to say, but the fact that this is a key issue now, that the Norwegians are worried here that Trump might punish them if he doesn't give a peace prize in terms of tariffs or other ways. I mean, it's not really what goes in the spirit of the Nobel Peace Prize, which is supposed to go to those who have done the most or best to advance the fellowship among nations. So, and also his list of countries he brought peace to, I'm a bit skeptical. I mean, in Gaza, he wants credit for solving this war, but again, this is a US-backed genocide. He wants a reward for ending the war with Iran, but it was America who attacked Iran and attacked its nuclear reactors. He also claims credit for ending the war in Yemen, but again, this was a US attack on Yemen. And now, as I said, he parked his navy outside Venezuela, which might be another war. He's taking credit for resolving the conflict between India and Pakistan. I know they made some diplomatic efforts, but this is also, I think, deeply exaggerated, the extent to which he was involved. So overall, I mean, he's not a... It would be a bit absurd to give him the Peace Prize, given that he hasn't actually delivered peace. And, his big peace effort was, of course, Ukraine, but now he's going to hand over Tomahawks, which could trigger a nuclear war. It's still American weapons, intelligence, logistics that's fueling this war. But again, in rhetoric, he argues it's not his war. He never wanted it. But it doesn't matter. These are his wars, and the amount of wars he's been fighting over these few months he had in office now, it doesn't really suggest he's deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize.
Absolutely, Dr. Decent, you've made a fair point there. And at a time when so many conflicts remain unresolved, how do you interpret this decision in terms of the broader global conversations around democracy and also dissent?
Sorry, I missed that last part.
I was just trying to understand that how would this decision actually impact the broader global conversation around democracy and also dissent, as we are in a climate where there's geopolitical upheaval all around the globe and we have so many conflicts which still remain unresolved.
Well, I think that the Nobel Peace Prize becomes too disputed because it links essentially peace to the democratic peace theory, which is the idea that if you spread democracy, then you will have peace. The problem is once peace is advanced, well, democracy is advanced through military force, one has to question this. Again, in Ukraine, one has to point out that NATO started a war in 2014 by toppling a democratically elected government, for example, in the name of promoting democracy. We see now a possible war in Venezuela, and I would say a majority of the wars being initiated now are done under the name of advancing democracy. So it becomes a contradiction which has to be addressed. So I think this kind of peace prize will be very divisive. Again, the NATO countries will use this as a way of patting themselves on the back, showing that they are on the right side of history. For in many other parts of the world, this will be seen as being a bit problematic, providing legitimacy for further warfare. So I do think that, well, it's no secret that this award has become deeply political, and I think that will be reflected in how it's seen around the world as well. Now, Trump's personal push for getting the Peace Prize, I mean, it's a bit perplexing why he's so obsessed with it, but again, it could be an important award because really the whole world is now heading into conflicts all across the world, and of course we have conflicts like China, which could be in the making. But again, pointing to Trump, he recently said he wanted to take over a former air base in Afghanistan by force because he wants to be close to where China's nuclear weapons are made. I mean, this is a very strange approach to peace, unless you think toppling governments around the world to impose democracy is the path to peace.
Of course, and given the global political climate, do you think that, as you've mentioned, this award does feel, and the choice particularly does feel divisive, but do you think despite all of that there could be a real diplomatic weight to it?
I unfortunately don't see it. Again, it's become very popular in the last few years to give these awards to dissidents in countries of NATO adversaries, but not within the NATO countries or allies of NATO countries. So it does seem that it's used as an instrument of soft power. And I would say it's unfortunate because there is a need to focus more on peace these days. I mean, if we look at conflicts around the world, we hardly talk about diplomacy anymore. Instead, it's all military solutions to all problems. Now, my concern is that once countries begin to talk about democracy and freedom, it becomes idealistic and moralizing to the extent there is no middle ground. There's no room for diplomacy because the democracy can't make a compromise with authoritarianism because it's good values versus bad. So I fear that this logic of democratizing the world, that this is something that has really built itself now into this Nobel Peace Prize.
Right, and just to take that point a little further, so do you think that this choice reflects a shift in how the Nobel Committee views peace, perhaps, as you've said, the push towards the democratic aspect of peace and how the changes that we're seeing right in front of us? Do you think this particular choice is also adding to that or maybe fueling a different narrative?
Well, I definitely think it's fueling the narratives as opposed to advancing peace. It's very hard to see why this would be a good choice for peace, given that the US is now attacking these different civilian vessels off the coast of Venezuela and that they have their navy in place, either for a decapitation strike or possibly even an actual invasion. So once you then begin to establish a partnership with a dissident, someone who might work with the invading power to take power after an invasion, you have to ask yourself whether or not that this is promoting peace, or if this is something that is setting the stage or legitimizing a war. And I think that this is definitely something that is legitimizing a war. If Trump wants to invade Venezuela, he just got a big attaboy from the Nobel Peace Prize Committee.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Deason, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing a valuable perspective with us.